There's a moment in every child's life when they first walk through those heavy school doors, backpack weighing down their small shoulders, eyes wide with curiosity about the world waiting to be discovered. Yet somewhere between that first day and graduation, something profound shifts. The spark of natural wonder begins to dim, replaced by a mechanical rhythm of compliance and conformity. Arthur Schopenhauer, the brilliant German philosopher, understood this transformation with painful clarity. He once wrote, "All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident." Perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in how we've come to accept that traditional schooling is the natural, inevitable path for human development. But what if it isn't? What if the very institution we trust to nurture young minds is actually doing something far more sinister? Schopenhauer believed that true education should awaken the individual will, not suppress it. He saw formal schooling as a factory designed to produce docile workers rather than independent thinkers. "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone," he observed. "And if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free." Consider the typical classroom scene. 30 children sit in neat rows, facing forward, hands folded, voices hushed unless permission is granted to speak. The message is clear from the very beginning. Your natural impulses are wrong. Your curiosity must wait. Your body must remain still. Your voice must be silenced until called upon. This isn't education in its truest sense. It's conditioning. The child who once spent hours examining a beetle in the garden, marveling at its intricate design and wondering about its purpose, is now told to memorize facts about insects for a test next Tuesday. The wonder dies, replaced by the anxiety of performance. The natural philosopher within every child is slowly suffocated by the demand for standardized responses. Schopenhauer understood that genuine learning happens through what he called intuitive knowledge, the kind of understanding that emerges from direct experience and contemplation. The discovery of truth is prevented more effectively, not by the false appearance things present and which mislead into error, not directly by weakness of the reasoning powers, but by preconceived opinion, by prejudice. Yet schools operate on the opposite principle. They present preconceived opinions as unquestionable truths. They reward memorization over understanding, compliance over creativity, uniformity over individuality. The child learns not to think, but to think as they're told to think. The psychological impact runs deeper than most realize. Carl Jung, building on similar insights, recognized that formal education often creates what he called a false self, a persona designed to meet external expectations rather than express authentic being. Children learn to perform rather than to be, to seek approval rather than truth, to fear failure rather than embrace the natural learning process of trial and error. Watch a group of 5-year-olds at play, and you'll witness pure creativity in motion. They build impossible worlds, ask endless questions, experiment fearlessly with ideas and materials. Their minds are like water, flowing naturally around obstacles, finding new paths, constantly moving and exploring. Now observe those same children after several years of formal schooling. The questions become fewer. The creativity becomes more constrained. The natural flow has been channeled into rigid canals directed toward predetermined destinations. They've learned the most dangerous lesson of all, that there are right answers and wrong answers, and their job is to find the right ones, not to discover new questions. Schopenhauer saw this as a form of violence against the human spirit. Every child is an artist, he might have agreed with Picasso. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. But the problem isn't growing up. It's being systematically taught to abandon our natural gifts in favor of artificial constructs. The grading system perfectly embodies this destruction. A child writes a story from their heart, pours their imagination onto the page, and receives it back covered in red marks. not for the beauty of their vision or the courage of their expression, but for comma placement and paragraph structure. The message is clear. Form matters more than substance, compliance more than creativity. Years of this conditioning create what psychologists call learned helplessness. Students stop trusting their own judgment, their own curiosity, their own capacity to learn and discover. They become dependent on external validation, external direction, external motivation. The inner compass that once guided their natural learning is broken, replaced by the need for constant instruction and approval. Schopenhauer believed that a person's individuality expresses itself in every triviality. Yet schools systematically eliminate trivialities, uniqueness, individual expression. Uniforms, standardized tests, identical assignments, synchronized schedules, everything designed to produce uniformity rather than celebrate the magnificent diversity of human consciousness. The tragedy deepens when we realize that this system doesn't even achieve its stated goals. Students graduate knowing how to follow instructions but struggle with independent thinking. They've memorized countless facts but can't synthesize them into wisdom. They've been prepared for tests, but not for life. Meanwhile, the natural learning that happens outside school walls continues to demonstrate its power. Children effortlessly master complex video games, learn multiple languages through immersion, develop sophisticated social skills through play, and absorb vast amounts of information about subjects that genuinely interest them. Their minds remain capable of the very learning that schools claim to provide, but consistently fail to nurture. Jung understood that healing begins with recognition. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, he wrote. Perhaps what irritates us about poorly educated individuals isn't their lack of schooling, but our own recognition of what we lost in the process of being properly educated. The damage isn't just intellectual, it's spiritual and emotional. Children learn to distrust their instincts, to ignore their body's needs, to suppress their natural rhythms. They discover that authority figures know better than they do about everything, from when they should eat to what they should think about. The foundation of self-trust, so essential for a fulfilling life, crumbles under this constant external direction. Schopenhauer observed that the two enemies of human happiness are pain and boredom. Traditional schooling masterfully combines both. The pain of constant judgment, comparison, and criticism mingles with the profound boredom of irrelevant curriculum delivered through outdated methods. Children learn to associate learning itself with suffering, creating an aversion that can last a lifetime. Yet within this recognition lies the seed of liberation. Understanding how the mind was shaped allows us to consciously reshape it. The adult who recognizes these patterns can begin the slow work of rediscovering their natural curiosity, their capacity for wonder, their trust in their own judgment. This isn't about abandoning all structure or rejecting the value of knowledge. It's about distinguishing between education that serves human flourishing and conditioning that serves institutional control. Real education awakens. False education anesthetizes. True learning expands consciousness. Schooling often contracts it. Some individuals manage to preserve their essential nature despite years of institutional conditioning. They become the innovators, the artists, the independent thinkers who seem to operate by different rules. What protected them? Often it was the presence of adults who valued their individuality, who encouraged questions over answers, who created space for authentic expression alongside necessary learning. The path forward requires a kind of unlearning, not forgetting valuable knowledge, but releasing the psychological patterns that prevent genuine thinking. It means reactivating curiosity, rebuilding trust in one's own perception, and rediscovering the joy of learning for its own sake, rather than for external rewards. Schopenhauer reminds us that the world is my representation. The world we perceive is shaped by the consciousness through which we perceive it. If that consciousness has been molded by years of institutional conditioning, then our entire experience of reality reflects those limitations. But consciousness can be transformed, and with it, our experience of what's possible. The child within each of us still exists, still carries that original spark of wonder and possibility. It waits patiently beneath layers of conditioning, ready to re-emerge when given permission and encouragement. Perhaps the most radical act in a world that profits from our compliance is simply to remember who we were before we were told who we should be. As you drift toward sleep tonight, consider this. What questions did you stop asking? What interests did you abandon? What parts of your natural self did you learn to hide? These aren't lost forever. They're simply waiting for your return, like old friends who never forgot your name.